The biggest challenge a new product presents is usually not material but psychological. In order for the majority of people to accept a product, which is what is needed, the psychological barriers toward fully understanding the product must be removed. For this reason, many great inventions have been delayed, sometimes by centuries. People just did not understand how the author intended the product to work. The 21st century rise of both the internet and social media has surely made spreading information much easier. However, this is not enough. People need to understand the idea at its core, and cryptocurrency isn't exactly known for its simplicity. The aim of this presentation is just that, to present the meaning of DICE and explain it in such a way that anyone can understand. Only then will you be able to see why it is different from what is already out there. We think the best way to approach this is to begin by answering the question, what problems are we trying to solve? After all, we are not creating an imaginary product for its own sake. Our problems are real and probably seen by everyone. With DICE, we are trying to kill two birds with one stone. On one hand, the money we all know and love has been around for centuries and generally works well for everyone, but the model is outdated, very centralized and heavily controlled. On the other hand, there are already thousands of modern cryptocurrencies. Today, everyone and their mother is creating their own cryptocurrency in hopes of getting a piece of the pie. Many new cryptocurrencies serve no purpose other than to generate revenue for their creators. In addition, the market is volatile and the price is unpredictable. These factors make it practically impossible to implement cryptocurrency in your everyday life. Imagine the risk when purchase can vary by 25% or 30% every day. Blockchain cryptocurrencies also require an internet connection. There is no way around this. In the real world though, being connected to the internet is not always possible. Secondly, starting a business without having deep pockets or being backed by someone who has them is a daunting task. The business could have an excellent idea, solid potential for growth, and highly intelligent people. They're just unable to raise their initial capital to start working on it. Typically, an ICO is completely out of reach for a new startup. With a large number of consultants and platforms saturating the space, the cost has quickly spiraled. Despite this cost, most people just can't shoulder. There is still no guarantee for a successful campaign. Crowdfunding has become a popular choice, but this option only works when you already have a completed product. It is essentially future selling your product, which isn't particularly useful if you haven't even built it yet. Finally, angels and VCs. Angels and VCs typically provide funding to new businesses. Naturally, very few get lucky and are selected. Even getting heard by angels or VCs is a problem for many, let alone making a waterproof pitch with a solid business plan backed by a credible team. These are some major hurdles to overcome. So how do we get past them? Our solution is a new type of digital currency called DICE. DICE is a natural replacement for money. Instead of moving away from money, we are moving towards it. We are simply updating it for the 21st century and later. Instant payments and transfers, online and offline, just like money, using the technologies of today. But DICE goes even further than that. One of the major advances in cryptocurrency is the concept of mining. Mining essentially creates new currency units out of nothing, using only computing power. DICE takes this and makes it even more useful. It can help any business or virtually anyone easily raise capital for whatever cause they want. DICE introduces the idea of investment mining, which will be clarified further on in the presentation. So what are these DICE cryptocurrency units? DICE is an abbreviation for Digital Certificate. Digital certificates are small blocks of data. Unlike blockchain-based cryptocurrencies, where there is no physical expression of the particular unit but only a record of it, the physical nature of DICE means they are much closer to cash. In fact, they can be printed out, stored as files, or sent via email. What makes DICE even more innovative is its ability to generate value for businesses. Each individual unit is associated with a particular business of the miner's choice. In a way, this is similar to traditional money, just linked to the digital world. Instead of a handful of national banks creating money, now anyone can create their own money and use it worldwide. In a way, DICE makes a country out of every company. As we just mentioned, DICE is money as we know it, but also have never seen before. When a DICE unit is mined, not only the creator benefits, but also the business with whom it is associated. The miner effectively creates money for the business, but spends it on himself. Due to the physical nature of DICE, the creator can choose the design of their own nodes. These are the main principles of DICE's groundbreaking cluster model. The business building the cluster, known as the operator, gains value for their business, while every miner becomes an investor in their own business of choice. Anyone can be a miner, an operator, or support as many operators as they want. In the DICE economy, there are no transaction fees. What you give is what the other person gets. While an operator does have expenses associated with supporting their own cluster, the incentive to do this doesn't arise from fees, but from people creating tradable assets on their behalf. The ingenuity of this simple model is striking. It is the first of its kind and an integral part of DICE. Let's take a quick look at how the cluster model actually works. Here is a very simplified and cartoonish representation of a single cluster. We can see the operator in the center, two miners, and a customer who isn't mining but is trading in DICE. The picture also shows the most important communication flow in the protocol. When a new unit is mined, it is first verified by the miner locally, then by the operator. Only then is it valid and known. In another example, the miner is trading DICE with the user on the right. This could be in return for a service, for example. So the user on the right receives the DICE in any undisclosed form. Now both the original owner, which is the miner, and the new owner, which is the person on the right, have a copy of the DICE. In order to make it official, they both need to form a special protocol message called a claim to the operator associated with the DICE. Only two valid claims will satisfy the necessary conditions. This is equivalent to both parties virtually shaking hands, with the operator serving as a witness. Since DICE is physical, any meddling with the operator or either of the two sides will not produce gain, unless all parties are corrupted at the same time. In this sense, DICE is extremely secure. Since there is a certain number of units associated with any particular operator, those units represent that operator's capitalization. These units can be used as leverage in external deals just like any other capital. For example, if a bank is to release a loan to somebody, it usually requires proof that the borrower can cover the loan. In an exact analogy, the assets in the form of associated DICE units are known to exist and be used in the economy, and if necessary, can be pulled out to cover any future deals made by the operator. This picture only represents a speck of the global DICE economy. In reality, there can be thousands of operators and millions of miners and customers, all with complex links to each other. Some miners may be linked to a large number of operators and customers, the operators themselves are usually also miners, and so on. Again, although DICE is very structured, it is also completely decentralized, a world of unconnected operators working in a common economy. In case one or even many fail at the same time, it will only affect their own cluster while the economy remains intact. Since there is no single public ledger, no one knows anything about anyone else's dealings or balances. Operators also have the freedom to accept cheaper or more expensive DICE units as their minimum acceptable value. They can even issue timed units or units with multiple owners. An operator may choose to be completely open and have a public ledger of their associated DICE units, or operate in complete secrecy depending on their individual circumstances. Let's repeat everything we've learned so far. DICE is not moving away from the money we all know and love. Instead, it is bringing the old and the new together, taking the best from both. It is not blockchain-based, but instead based on a brand new cluster model which describes a world of unconnected peers with users around them, all operating within the same global network. DICE gives everyone the freedom to create their own money as well as the social opportunity to gather around a cause and raise capital. DICE has a physical form, making it practical for use not just online but also in the real world. You can do your weekly shopping and pay for it in Dice. You can buy baby clothes online and pay for them in Dice. You can give a Dice coin to a charity or even a homeless person. Everything you do with money today, you can do with Dice. Both miners and operators benefit by working together toward a common cause. It is a revolution in the world of finances in which there are no losers. In summary, everyone wins using the Dice model. The miner makes money, the operator gains value from the mined associated Dice, also the overall economy, since people have the incentive to create businesses and assets and spend equally valued currency anywhere in the world using instant, no-fee transactions. Now let's dig a bit into the technical side. The initial concept was published in a white paper in August 2017. The paper describes the structure of Dice and the way in which it is created and traded. Let's take a look at some of these things. In reality, a Dice unit is nothing more than a bunch of bits. It is 128 bytes of data that can be exchanged between people, used as tokens in trade, sent over the internet, disposed in a file storage, and so on. The internal structure of a Dice unit is built from several data fields that the miner creating it needs to fill in such a way that it conforms to the rules of making valid Dice. First, since every Dice is associated with one particular operator, the digital address of that operator is stored in the unit. Thus, it is known which operator can validate the unit during every trade. This is very similar to writing the name of the country on every banknote. The miner's digital address is also stored in the block making it, so it is forever known who originally mined it. Another data field in the unit sets a certain complexity level for creation. This level is chosen by every operation individually and directly affects the value of the unit. In order to keep global consistency, operators can only choose complexity levels within a specific range. The time of creation is also stored in the data block. Finally, there is a large data chunk generated in such a way that the unit as a whole can be considered as valid. All these fields are filled with data during the mining process using special software that runs through the miner's computer. Unlike other cryptocurrencies, Dice unit can be assessed as valid or not using the naked eye. This makes it possible to use Dice in everyday offline transactions. We are not going to talk much about Dice's exact mining algorithm now. It is, however, worth noting that Dice are mined through a very simple yet completely waterproof algorithm. There is no limit on the volume that can be mined, but this isn't a bad thing. Mining is very difficult and time-consuming, with a large number of operators fighting over association rights for the unit. Output is deterministic, and adjusting the overall complexity level means that saturation of the market can never be achieved. As previously mentioned, Dice can exist in many forms, not only digitally but also in the real world. A typical format can be text, as shown here, or a QR graphical code. Dice can be printed onto paper or plastic tokens, stamped on coins, and so on. Since the only important thing is the actual small data block, all cash options can be completely unique in design. This allows for a shock-free adoption of Dice. Dice cards, similar to normal bank cards, will make paying an instant process, often without even requiring online connection. For places where internet connection may not be present, this presents a great opportunity. Due to the nature of Dice, our model is extremely tolerant of multiple copies of the same unit. This does not have the potential to create problems since only one copy can be valid at a time. As always, cash payments carry their own unique set of risks, but in the Dice world, these risks are at the owner's discretion as he can choose whether or not to accept them. Cash payments can be practically impossible to trace back since there is no record of their movement. In cases where privacy is an absolute must, Dice guarantees it. So to recap, yes, Dice is secure, and yes, it can completely be private. The Dice world allows for both complete transparency and complete privacy. Since the units are actual data blocks, they must first be generated. There is no other way. It is impossible to have pre-mined units since they do not yet exist. It is impossible to steal units from someone and use them unless their owner agrees to it. Dice cannot be controlled. Operators do have some limited options, but only within the scope of their own cluster. Ultimately, miners are the ones that decide which operator is worth mining for and which is not. If an operator wants to gain support, they must match their miner's needs, a kind of natural selection. The Dice Adrex proxy is performed in the cloud. Its only role is to match a specific physical computer with its digital address. Dice is a revolution ready to happen.